Welcome to Rooted in Abundance Farm. I'm Birdie, a single mom who just bought an old farmhouse on 10 acres. I homeschool my two daughters full-time. Today, I'm really excited to share with you my journey from off-grid unschooling to road schooling back to farm schooling. I used to live on a 3-acre off-grid farm in Oregon, but after a divorce, we decided to hit the road for a while. It ended up almost being a year, and we lived in a van and traveled all around the country. It was one of the most exciting, difficult, and beautiful journeys I have ever taken. During this time, I was unschooling my children. I wanted to keep our process of child-led homeschooling going while we were traveling the country. And this was such a different experience than child-led homeschooling on a farm. On a farm, there was so much hands-on experience available right outside their door, lots of connection to nature. And there was a lot of patience and waiting for things to grow and interaction with animals. And I really loved it. I really love farm schooling. I think it's beautiful and has so many lessons for children. My girls had their own little garden beds that they would help me with, and they would pick out their own seeds for their garden beds, and they would just get so excited of the process. It would take a lot of time, and I thought that was beautiful for them to learn the patience that comes with gardening and farming. Children naturally learn so many lessons doing farm life. We were constantly studying different plants, learning about different things that add nutrition to our bodies, learning how to raise animals, and it was just so beautiful. We really truly loved it, and we're starting to pick that up here at our new farm. We just got bunny rabbits, we just got our cats now that we're all settled in the farm, and we are waiting on our hatching eggs to get here, and we're waiting on our baby chicks to get here. And we have baby goats coming, and they're going to get to learn all about the beautiful life cycle, birth, and they're going to get to learn how the goat mamas feed their babies, and then we're also going to take part of that milk. We'll be making goat cheese, and so there's so many different hands-on skills that the kids are learning, and I think the hands-on skills are fewer when we're doing van life and travel, but they learn a whole different set of lessons that are so valuable. When we did van life, I really saw a valuable change in my children. I started to see this open-mindedness bloom amongst them. I noticed this beautiful shift in their mindsets. My daughter started asking questions about cultures and people and different ways that people live, and it really prompted this curiosity about the differences in people and environments and places, and she really started to grow this love for learning about diverse groups of people, diverse places, and this love for travel. And that was probably one of my favorite things about doing van life with my children. I really did notice a difference in how they saw people and how they saw themselves. They started to understand that everyone is going to have a different background. Everyone is going to have a different way of life. Everyone is going to have different views depending on where they came from and what they have learned from their community. And that is just such a valuable lesson that I don't think they would have ever been able to learn on the farm. And so I'm really grateful for that. Even though we missed our farm life, and I really love homeschooling on a farm, I would not trade them learning that lesson, even so young. I know you're probably going to be like, your children are still young. Are they actually going to retain that? Yes, it is now ingrained in who they are. It's really, really beautiful. My daughter is just so naturally curious about asking about different groups of people and their ways of living, religions, cultures. It's really awesome to see. And I know that is very deeply ingrained in them now. And also that love of travel, because my oldest daughter, she was kind of like, I love the farm, I want the farm, but I also want to still travel. When we stopped in California for a while at our apartment traveling, she was like, oh wait, we're not going on another trip. She loves it. She loves checking out the new places, and she's very social, so she loved meeting the new people as well. When we were doing van life, we weren't baking as much. Baking is one of our favorite tools for learning. We weren't cooking as much. I would make a lot more simple meals quicker. And so there was this whole different opening of space to learn. So what we were doing is we were going to museums. We were going to different historical locations and talking about it. We were still doing a lot of nature identification. We would still forage. There was a lot more of a need to use, I guess, our environment for learning versus on the farm. I guess it's both environmental learning, but the real difference was that we had to rely on the community for those learning tools a lot more. I did bring a ton of books with us, probably too many books. That was like the one messy thing in my van. I had my van very minimalist. I had it very organized, but there was children's books everywhere, and I wasn't willing to give that up. So we had a lot of different we still had our farm anatomy book, which I thought was funny that they would still ask about farm animals and things like that. And we would still sometimes go to zoos, nature preserves. So we still had these interactions with animals. It just wasn't firsthand, and they weren't the ones doing the caretaking. And that was something that I felt a little bit lacking. And I noticed when we got our farm and we started getting the animals, my youngest daughter had a lot of caretaking skills to learn and a lot more patience to learn. And these boundaries that you kind of learn when you deal with animals a lot of this animal is not a toy. She definitely had to learn that. And that's just something you can't really learn on the road unless you have animals on the road with you, which some people do, and that's awesome. We did want a cat on the road with us. It just wasn't something we were able to do. But overall, I think both ways of learning have so many beautiful lessons and so many beautiful benefits, and both things have their little bit of downfalls. I think the farm life preaches more patience and caretaking than van life does, but van life preaches more acceptance and understanding of different cultures than farm life does. I think they are both so valuable, and I honestly recommend everyone try both if they can. Honestly, try both if you can. And obviously, if you don't want to farm, don't do that. Maybe just grow a small garden with your child and have an animal. It could even just be a fish or a hamster. It doesn't have to be anything big or extravagant, but I think these are just such beautiful lessons, and I wouldn't trade them for the world. Regardless of what tools you use or environment you use, when you're doing child-led homeschooling, observation is your best friend. Let your children observe. Let them be still, be bored, and lean on observation, because observation is going to be one of their main ways of learning. When you're doing child-led homeschooling, observing things is how they learn what they're interested in. My kids wouldn't have known if they were interested in gardening or animals or the different plants that they chose for their gardens if they hadn't observed me doing it first. So just allow space for observation. That's my tip, no matter where you're doing child-led homeschooling. If you're doing it, if you want to try it out, observation is key, and just giving them that room to explore. Even when we were doing van life, even though it was a little bit more challenging to give them that free time to play, the unguided space to play without me up in their business, we still managed it. We would stop the van in a nature area, and I would let them out to just play, and as long as they could stay in my sight of vision, because obviously things can be a little crazy, as long as they were in my sight of vision, they were able to just play what they wanted and explore and dig in the mud, get dirty, look at different plants and bugs. Bugs were a huge thing that we studied when we were doing van life. They were really into worms and roly-polies and slugs. They still are at our farm, but that was really cool to see on van life, that their way of engaging with nature and not quite animals, but insects. So just allow that space, and just know that you can do child-led homeschooling anywhere. If I did it in a van, you can do it anywhere. Pretty much, books, hands-on experience, museums, nature spaces are your best friend when you're doing child-led homeschooling. Also art, we did a ton of art activities on the road, at the farm. We do art everywhere we go. And that's just great early literacy skills and just creativity. I think that also allows them to explore what they're interested in. A lot of the things that we do for homeschooling, we would do in a house, we would do in the van, doing road schooling, and we do on the farm. So, it's all interconnected. The main thing is to create beautiful memories, to create connection with each other, and to allow them to take lead in exploring their curiosities. And I think doing van life, it was just a little bit harder because there had to be a little bit more limitations to things. They didn't have as much freedom a lot of the time just because I didn't know the different areas. At our farm, I'm finding they have a lot more freedom. My main goal will be and has always been to support them in their mental health and their wellness. I think schooling and education comes secondary to their overall well-being, and I think homeschooling is really valuable for that because we get to work out what works for us and what works for our families, and we can go at whatever pace is best for us. So if you have any questions, I would love to do a Q&A all about child-led homeschooling. I did a Q&A about my life, but if you have specific questions about child-led homeschooling, please let me know. I'm so excited to share more of the farm schooling and our life that we're building here at the farm. Thank y'all so much for watching today. Thank you for being here. I'm really grateful. If you are interested in child-led homeschooling, I do have a course and more resources on my website. You can see the links below. Have a good day, y'all.